Hey, Chaotic Crew, Brian here. I've got another great Avatar The Last Airbender deck tech for you, and we're going back to see Avatar Aang. But before we do, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Mana Pool. It's a fast-growing marketplace for Magic the Gathering that makes buying and selling cards easy. Their optimizer helps you get the best value in buying cards, and the team is focused on making it a great experience for buyers and sellers alike. Make sure to check out that link in the description below, and really big shout out to Manapool for helping out the channel there. So back to Avatar Aang, we did the 3-color Bant avatar previously. Now we're doing 5-color Aang, and this one cares about all the bending. I'll read the card for you now. It's one of every color minus black, so red, green, white, blue for a 4/4 flying Firebending to human avatar ally. Just in case you're forgetting, Firebending means that when you attack with this creature, you will get that many red mana, so in this case 2 red mana. Obviously the mana fizzles out after combat. So whenever you waterbend, earthbend, firebend, or airbend, draw a card. Then if you've done all 4 this turn, transform Avatar Aang. So at the very minimum, this is a 4/4 flyer that whenever you attack, you draw a card. That's not bad. Drawing a card once a turn is pretty solid, and obviously if you're building around your commander, you will want to put in more earthbending, waterbending, and airbending. Firebending is the easiest to get off because we have our commander, so we don't need too many other firebending cards, although we do have it because you'll still proc off of each time you do it. I call the name... Airbending's the hardest one to do consistently. We have a lot of waterbending cards. We have very few earthbending cards, but the earthbending cards we do have can consistently proc like each turn. So as long as we get one of those out, it's great. But the airbending cards, for the most part, except for one, can't be repeated. It's just as they enter. So something to keep in mind. We don't really want to transform this that much. When you do, however, you do get a great ability. So it's a 6/6 flyer now. Makes spells we cast cost Wooburg less to cast, and this also reduces generic costs. So even though if something is, one of anything, a white and a blue, then that will just still cost 0 mana. You can just cast it for free. Now you're not going to be drawing the cards you did on the front side, but that's something to keep in mind. At the beginning of each upkeep, so probably one of your opponents, you may transform Aang, Master of Elements. If you do, you gain 4 life, you draw 4 cards, put 4 +1/+1 counters on him, and he deals 4 damage to each opponent. So that is that's a lot. You do get a lot for that, so it's really great to maybe be able to transform him, hold up a bunch of mana for counter spells or whatever, and then transform at the beginning of your next upkeep or your opponent's upkeep. It's really nice, but this card is mostly going to be on the front side. Now let's take a look at the deck. Obviously starting off with 3 more Aangs. This is the Aang we used last week. Pretty much when it enters, you're going to get another creature from your deck onto the battlefield, and those creatures will typically have one of the 4 bending types on it. So potentially drawing a card when this enters, or getting something with firebending, in which case it'll proc again next turn. And then this will likely get transformed to the backside, and will earthbend you 2 on each of your combats. So that's really nice. Eventually you'll get to this, and then it'll be great. Aang Swift Savior is a white and a blue, like we were mentioning earlier as the example. Has flash, which is really cool. And then when Aang enters, you airbend up to one other target creature or spell. Airbending is you exile that creature, and what happens is its controller may recast that spell for 2 generic mana. Timing rules still apply, but essentially this is slight tempo against your opponents, or if you're trying to blink your own things, you can do that as well. And then also, always on the table, you can waterbend 8 to transform this Aang as well. They all transform. No, that's not the right one. Why doesn't it have the right one? No, this does not transform into Aang Destined Savior like over here. This one is Aang and La, Ocean's Fury. It's a 5/5 with Reach and Trample, and whenever Aang and La attack, put a +1/+1 counter on each tapped creature you control. So, not as much a big deal there, really just in here to get that airbending if you need it, and can also waterbend, so very flexible there. Aang, the last Airbender, is the third Aang, and whenever he enters, you airbend up to one other target non-land permanent, and then whenever you cast a lesson spell, Aang gains lifelink until end of turn. So we do have a few lessons in here, so that isn't completely useless. Again, 4 mana to airbend one thing isn't really ideal, but being able to have a 3/2 lifelinker is not terrible. So that it's in the deck. It'll draw us a card. Appa, Loyal Sky Bison. This is the best airbending card in the deck. Whenever he enters or attacks, you can either airbend another target non-land permanent you control, or target creature you control gains flying until end of turn. So it also has flying. This is the only way to repeatably airbend anything, and it has to be your own thing. So it's still not great, right? But it's there. But yeah, I hate that, but it is the best airbending card. Speaking of Appa, we have another one. Flash flying. Whenever Appa enters, airbend any number of other target non-land permanents you control. Again, it's you control, so you can't airbend any of your opponent's things. It has to be your own thing. So maybe you want to airbend this Aang Destined Savior so you can get the front side proc again. There's other cards that you would want to airbend in here, but especially like this Aang that will airbend another thing when it enters. There's some other ETB triggers that you can kind of deal with that. So it's not terrible, but not amazing either. And then whenever you cast a spell from exile, create a 1/1 white ally. So this will get you a couple allies here and there. So not bad. Badger Mole Cub is one of the better cards of the deck. You earthbend 1 when it enters, and then whenever you tap a creature for mana, you add an additional green mana. And you'll see following up here, we've got Birds of Paradise and Delighted Halfling. So if any of these three are, on the field, you'll have at least land creature, right, with Badger Mole Cub, or those two, and it'll give you some extra mana to cast some spells here, which is good. We have some high mana value cards that it's nice to get a discount on. Firelord Zuko, Firebending X, where X is Firelord Zuko's power. It's really cool because this is actually, a card we also did a deck tech on recently, so make sure to check that out if you haven't already. But a very cool card, and it says when you cast a spell from exile, whenever a permanent you control enters from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So he's got Firebending, and what's great is that he works really well with the Airbending cards that we have. That's pretty unique for it to synergize like that, so I added him in here. Gustcloak Saviors is not an avatar card by any means, but whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you may untap that creature and remove it from combat. I figured that was good because we want to be attacking it with our commander to get that card draw each turn, and eventually our opponents will be able to block a 4/4 flyer when there's not a whole lot we can do about it, so having some ways to help it get through is definitely nice. Coda, Selfless Commander, 4 mana for a 3/5, and you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast ally spells on the top of your library. You can also sacrifice a Coda. Creatures you control get +0/+5 and gain indestructible until end of turn. So yeah, most of the creatures in this deck are allies, so being able to essentially have access to that is nice, but also to sacrifice it to give them indestructible is fantastic. Haru Hidden Talent is a really great card here. 2 mana for a 1/1, and whenever another ally you control enters, you earthbend 1. Like I said, most of the other cards in this deck are allies, so able to continuously earthbend each turn, or most turns, I should say, and get that card draw with our commander. That includes playing this first and then casting our commander. When the commander enters, then we'll earthbend 1 and immediately draw a card, so really great here. Careful about earthbending though, because it does make your lands into creatures. It means they will die to board wipes. Any kind of removal is subject to your land, so make sure you're very careful. Maybe when you're earthbending, only earthbend 1 land, so they don't aren't able to destroy multiple of them. That can get kind of scary there. Iroh Grand Lotus, Firebending 2, and then during your turn, each non-lesson instant in the sorcery in your graveyard has flashback. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost, and then during your turn, each lesson card in your graveyard has flashback 1. So this is really great if we're trying to transform our commander, right? If we get lots of value off of doing that, and we say we don't have a lot of cards in hand, being able to cast all this stuff from our graveyard, whether it's a lesson or non-lesson, and do all those things, that's ideal, right? So that's the reason he's in here, so you can, whatever you're missing in your hand, whether it's the airbending, waterbending, or earthbending, if it's in your graveyard, you can kind of do that as well. Katara Bending Prodigy. Oh, you'll see this. My internet keeps cutting in and out, so yeah, don't mind that. But Katara Bending Prodigy is really great. At the beginning of your end step, if she's tapped, you put a +1/+1 counter on her, and then you can water bend 6 to draw a card. I haven't really talked about water bending yet, but it is essentially you can pay mana for water bend, but you can also tap creatures to pay for part of that mana. So instead of water bending and paying 6 mana, you could tap 3 creatures and pay 3 mana, or tap 4 creatures and pay 2 mana, or tap 6 creatures and pay none, right? Typically not going to be able to tap all the creatures for those water bending abilities. You can just put mana into that, but it is nice. And water bending actually works really well with firebending, because most of these water bending costs you can pay them at instant speed, right? And so if you're attacking and your creatures are tapped that are attacking, you're getting firebending 2 from your commander. You can always use your commander to pay 2 of that mana. So really great synergy there as well. Katara, Water Tribe's Hope, Vigilance, and when she enters, you make a 1/1 white ally. What's great here, there's a few cards that are making ally tokens, and they're great for waterbending. Katara has Waterbending X. Creatures you control have base power and toughness XX until end of turn. X can't be 0. Activate only during your turn. This is kind of counterintuitive to your game plan, right? Because if you were going wide, you don't really want to use those creatures to tap. There's a point of diminishing returns here where you don't want to tap all your creatures, but you want to put a bunch of mana into this. So that's something to think about. But what this does is this makes it, we can waterbend for really cheap each turn. So if we want to, you know, if waterbending is the last thing we need, we can just waterbend for 1. Sure, all of our stuff will have base power 1/1. It's risky, but it's a cheap way to get a waterbending proc off. Lotho Corrupt Sheriff, just, you know, we have very little black cards in this deck, but Lotho's a great one and getting us to ramp up pretty quickly, so love him here. North Pole Patrol can untap permanents, so really good for getting us, you know, extra mana in a turn, but can also waterbend 3 and tap it, so essentially waterbend 4, and you're tapping target creature and opponent controls. That one's not as ideal, but again, it's a way to waterbend consistently, like each turn, so that is nice. Sakura Tribe Elder as good ramp. Sokka Tenacious Tactician is pretty good. He's got Menace Prowess. He gives all our other allies Menace Prowess, and whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we make a 1/1 white ally. So he is filling our board and making our board stronger, right? Making our commander stronger, helping him get through, which we said all those things are important here in this deck. Toph Earthbending Earthbending Master. I'm melee pilled if you can't tell. But anyways, landfall, whenever a land you control enters, you get an experience counter. And then whenever you attack, you earthbend X, where X is the number of experience counters you have. Now what's great is that Toph doesn't have to earthbend or to attack herself. You can really just have your commander be the one attacking, and you can then earthbend and firebend whenever you're attacking. So really great here. Toph, the first metal bender, also gonna really help out, and makes non-token artifacts who control lands in addition to their other types. They don't tap for mana, but they are lands. But that means we can, you know, earthbend 2 on an artifact creature or something. We don't really have that. This is more just that we can, again, earthbend each turn. Really way to do that consistently. Uncle Iroh's great here, firebending 1. Don't care as much about that. It is a 4/2 for 3, which is not bad, but also he makes our lesson spells cost 1 less to cast. We are running a good amount of those, so always nice to have. Plus, just a 3 mana 4/2 that can draw us a card with our commander, not bad. Water Tribe Rallier is just a 2 mana 2/2, but has Waterbend 5. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You can reveal a creature card, power 3 or less among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom in any random order. Again, this is just a way to waterbend if we need it consistently, but not amazing right on paper. So, sorceries, we've got a few here. Most of them are ramp, right? Ramp and Growth, Farseek, Nature's Lore, 3 visits. We've got Shared Roots, which is the new Ramp and Growth, but it's also a lesson, so that's great there. We're also running Waterbending Lesson, which will draw us 3 cards, then discard a card unless we waterbend 2. So we can use this to waterbend. It's a little expensive, but in a pinch, it can draw us 4 cards, right? And that's not bad. Raise the Palisade and Blasphemous Edict are our board wipes. Obviously, we're running a bunch of allies, so Raise the Palisade, getting rid of allies or getting rid of non-allies will really help out. Blasphemous Edict, again, just typically will be 1 black when we pay this, and even though we're not running very many black cards, we are able to mana fix pretty well in this deck. Anzrag's Rampage, destroying all artifacts you don't control, and then exiling top X cards of our library, where X is the number of artifacts are put into graveyards from the battlefield this turn. You may put a creature card exile that's way onto the battlefield, and it gains haste. Return it to your hand at the beginning of the end step. So this is really great here to get a free creature out and to really just set your opponents back a lot. And, you know, we're not running a ton of creatures. It's a quarter of our deck here, but... you know, you're bound to get 1 creature. We have a few enter the battlefield triggers. If you get an airbending card like Aang or Aang or one of the Appas, that's really great. But because they'll be brought back up to your hand, and then you can recast them and re-airbend. So there's that. But I typically run this in most of my decks that are playing. You know, Vandal Blast may be better too, but I figured this would be an interesting one to have. Next, we have 19 instants, so a lot of those bad boys. Airbending lesson to start out. We can airbend a non-land permanent and then draw a card. It's not a terrible way to do that, but it's not really repeatable, but it's good to have here. We're running a few counters. Negate, an offer you can't refuse, Arcane Denial. That's the typical counter package I'm running in my casual decks. Obviously, you could add more if you want, but it's really not that important. For removal, we've got really great options. Assassin's Trophy, Beast Within, Chaos Warp, Generous Gift, let's see, Swords to Plowshares, Rakdos Charm can remove artifacts, but also exile graveyards. So those are really great there. We've got Bolt Bend to, you know, change the target from our commander. Redirect Lightning is going to do the same thing, right? So that's great there. Enter the Avatar State will also protect our commander, right? It's going to give him hexproof, but also First Strike and Lifelink, which is never bad to have. And then Heroic Intervention as another, you know, protection spell there. We've got some other interesting spells here. We've got Harrow and Cycle of Renewal as more ramp, right? Pretty good. Cycle of Renewal is in here mainly because it's a lesson, and Harrow, the lands that it gets are tapped, so that's really great. Then we also have Moon Mist, which is really busted in this deck. Transform all humans. Prevent all combat damage will be dealt this turn by creatures other than werewolves and wolves. So really you're transforming this on like an opponent's turn. But even if you're transforming it just to untransform it, Aang is a human. So you transform Aang into Aang Master of Elements. And you can just unload your whole hand if you want, and then draw 4 cards the next turn. So it's really, you know, and he also gets 4+1/+1 counters. So it's a lot. It is very good in here and can kind of be crazy, I would say. We also have Noxious Revival. If for whatever reason one of our bending cards is in our graveyards and we really want it, we can put this back on top, or you can mess with an opponent regenerating something from their graveyard. It really just depends. Origin of Metal Bending is really nice too. It's the last card here that we haven't really highlighted. You can destroy an artifact or enchantment, or you can put a +1/+1 counter on target creature and gains indestructible. But it's also a lesson, so that's nice there. 6 artifacts. You know, Arcane Signet. A Decanter of Endless Water is fantastic because it gives us no max hand size, and we are going to be doing a lot of drawing cards here with our commander. Felwar Stone, Thought Vessel, you know, the counterpart to Decanter. Herald's Horn's great for allies, right, making our allies cost 1 less, and then we're going to potentially be drawing more allies, so that's always good. And then Glider Staff, when it enters, you airbend 1 creature, and then you can give something flying. So, not amazing, but a way to airbend. Speaking of, Airbender Ascension, when it enters, you airbend up to 1 creature, and then whenever a creature you control enters, put a quest counter on this enchantment. Beginning of your end step, if this enchantment has 4 or more quest counters on it, you exile up to 1 target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So this will actually give you some blink synergies with the airbending cards you have or anything else like that, but it also airbends itself, which is nice. Bitter Work is giving us more card draw, right, with our commander, but it also gives a way to earthbend in a pinch. You can only do it once while this card's in the battlefield, but it's nice. With all of the cards, the ally tokens they were making. Cryptolith Right, I thought wasn't a bad idea. There's some water bending synergies in here too, so you could argue to take this out, but I thought it would be a fun little ad. Gendry of the Realm is also interesting. Honestly, looking at this enchantment section, it's kind of like a hodgepodge of whatever the heck I felt like putting in. But Gendry of the Realm is really great because we do have some earthbending stuff. And this works great on whatever land that you've made into a creature, because it's going to have +1/+1 counters on it. And this, right, typically I'm not going to just randomly cast this for its mana cost. I'm going to cast this if we've transformed Aang. But so for 2 mana, right, we're making our 3 counter land that we have is going to be an 8/12 with 3 counters, so it's going to turn into an 11/15 with trample until end of turn. So that's going to hurt really bad and can potentially end games for people. So Gendry of the Realm is really great. It also returns back up to your hand, so all the lands that we do end up turning into creatures are going to be dangerous when this is in our hand. So something to keep in mind there. Speaking of, Terra Eternal is fantastic. It's going to make all of our lands indestructible. It's going to protect the lands that we turn into creatures. Obviously, there's exile removal and exile board wipes. Those are all possible. But this makes it a lot easier and makes me feel better at putting counters on the creatures. Watery Grasp is another way to waterbend. It taps a creature, or it doesn't tap it, but it makes it so it doesn't untap into their whatever. But then you can also waterbend 5 and have them shuffled into their library. So that's always good too, just to have that on the stack as an option. Lastly, the Legend of Yang Chen. 5 mana. Starting with you, each player chooses up to 1 permanent with mana value 3 or greater from among permanents your opponents control. Exile those permanents. So that's a lot. It's already mass removal, which is great. The second chapter, you may have target opponent draw 3 cards. If you do, draw 3 cards. That's okay. And then 3, exile the saga, then return to the battlefield transformed under your control. So transformed, it's Avatar Yang Chen. And just a 4/5 flyer. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, airbend up to 1 other target non-land permanents. This is the best repeatable way to airbend, but you're also, you gotta spend 5 mana and then wait a few turns. So not exactly ideal there. And lands, we got 35 lands. Nothing crazy, right? We're running 3 of the tri-lands, so Ragran Triome, Ketria Triome, and Jetmir's Garden, all the ones with green that don't have black, just because we don't really run a lot of black in here, so these are the main colors we need to get our commander out. Cavern of Souls, Plaza of Heroes, Secluded Courtyard to help with that as well, and then all of the dual lands that are forests, right? 3 Visits, Nature's Lore, and Farseek will help get all of these out, so if we ever need a specific color, we can always get that done. Playtesting the deck. This doesn't look too bad. Let's go ahead and keep this hand. Ralgren, Triome tapped. Alright, next turn. No really way to... Oh, this... I'm stupid. This isn't even a forest. So I have the Temur land, the Jeskai land, and the Naya land. And so the one I'm missing is the Bantland, which is the Brokers. So I replaced Ragran Trium with the Brokers one. I do it right now if my Wi-Fi wasn't cutting out. But essentially, yeah, we actually have no green mana here. So that is a bit of an issue. But we could, airbending lesson into a land. So I say we keep going and see what happens. Because if we get another land at period, we can still cast our commander, hopefully. So turn 2, that was that. Turn 3, we get another Aang. Okay, so Secluded Courtyard. This is an instant. Wait till opponent's in step, airbend something, and draw a card. We get Rampant Growth, which doesn't help us, but we do get an island. A clutch draw for turn 4, and now we can actually cast our commander, which is nice. Cast our commander. Boop. Because, of course, the Secluded Courtyard, paying for the ally cost for green is great. And then we will hope it doesn't die. It's possible Aang gets removed. If that happens, that is unfortunate. It does kind of screw us over, but we will be okay. So first off, we're going to attack Oh man, attacking and not being able to use the Firebending mana is not a feel good, but it is what it is. We have to do it because we don't have the green for Cycle of Renewal, unfortunately. Otherwise, we could use that mana. But we'll attack. We'll draw a card. We do get Jetmir's Garden. Finally, a green source. Nice, love that. Then I guess we can Glider Staff and Airbend if we want to. We can also hold up open mana. Yeah, not a lot we can do. Everything really requires green. That's why we have 10 green forests in here, and the rest, you know, are very small amounts. So getting mana screwed a couple times, not ideal. So maybe update that mana package. All right, this is good too. We're keeping this. Draw, play a forest, pass. Turn 2, Exotic Orchard is great. Farseek. And you know what? We're going to get the, because it's here right now, the Ralgren Triome. All right. And then turn 3, we can cast our commander, right? Assuming that this covers for the blue or white that this doesn't cover for. We can cast our commander, which is great. Love that. Next turn, if we get a land, we can play the Legend of Yang Chen, which is going to be really busted here. So that is fantastic. Turn 4. We do get a land. Interesting. Okay, and we have Cycle of Renewal, so we could use the Firebending mana if we wanted to as well. Don't hate that. And we can play Sokka plus do the Cycle of Renewal, and that would get us an ally and buff our commander up. So I actually don't hate that at all. Might make us a bit of a target, but I honestly don't mind that. I doubt someone's going to board wipe this early on in the game on turn 4. So play Sokka. Right, give our commander prowess and menace. Swing in, draw a card. Cycle of Renewal, get, you know, sack this mountain. Get a swamp and a plains out, right? And then we're in business, right? Next turn, then we can Legend of Yang Chen, or we could have done that this turn. That would have put a real big target on our back, I feel like. This would be good for next turn when people have even more stuff to deal with, because it is mass removal, right? That's not bad. Or if someone has a really great blocker, we want to hit them, then Ghost Cloak Savior is nice. Haru to Earthbend. With Sokka is nice as well to draw us a bunch of cards. So yeah, we're actually in a really good position this game, right? Yeah, if you don't get mana screwed, you're actually doing really great, because Avatar does just draw you a bunch of cards, keeps your hand full. You just need to keep finding ways to abuse that, right? Essentially, you're making it so that most of the cards in your deck replace themselves, which is the idea, right? But yeah, fun deck tech. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts, what you would take out, what you would put in. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next deck techs that we have coming out. We're also going to be doing a giveaway soon for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Commander deck, so make sure to become a member of the channel so you don't miss that, and so you get an extra entry into that giveaway when it does happen. So something to think about there. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.